I know I didn't do nothing. You know what I mean? It was a black police officer. I later found out that this police officer was like a very notorious type of dude. You know, he later got charged with the murder of Seville Smith, and he later got charged with raping 3 different men.
Could this story be one that is so convoluted that you'll never get to the end of it? Or could it possibly be that we do have an answer for it? You're going to have to decide that for yourself. We're only going to lay out some situational stuff for you, and hopefully you'll listen to it, make your own assertions about it, and we'll see how this goes. Because what we're going to point out to you, it's almost too hard to believe, but at the same time, there are going to be lots of people that say, that just happened to me, that happened to me too. So we're going to talk about it. The story of Ronnie Bo is going to be one that's going to be a one for the ages, I would say, because not very often you have someone come forward that has survived a system that they say is going after them, but is having the nerve to talk about the system, and the system not being able to really stop him from doing so. And by his own words, you will hear that he's not about to be intimidated anytime soon.
I believe that I was targeted because during the time I was campaigning with a former Alderman, Mike McGee, who was indicted for extortion, and he kind of silenced because he not campaigning so much himself, but he's supporting this dude, Ronnie Bo, you know what I mean, me. So it was like, okay, we need to get him out the way now. We need to either silence him, lock him up, or, you know, neutralize him by any means, you know what I mean?
Did it work? Did they neutralize you in your mind, or you just kept going anyway?
No, I'm still here, bro.
What we have here is a system at work, a few men, possibly even up to the state of the federal government, or even up to the mayor's level, that seem to have their claws so deep into this city of Milwaukee that they cannot release it. They don't have the capacity to let go of the power grab they have. It's been going on for quite some time. We're going to be mentioning some names. We're going to be mentioning some situations and tying them into some things that maybe folks haven't thought about, or you may have thought about, and you have seen the same ties. Again, we're not trying to convince anyone. We're just bringing to you the light of the story, and you can make your own assumptions about the end result. At the time of this incident with Mr. Bo, there was a mayor in charge of the city by the name of Tom Barrett. Now, Tom Barrett was not the subject of this particular situation. However, the length of time that he was in and the amount of things that took place under his supervision is what we're going to look at. The police chief, his name was Edward Flynn, and the person in talk here that we're talking about is Dominique Heaggan. Now, later on, Dominique Heaggan became a topic of much discussion because he was arrested for some very nefarious things. And as Ronnie alluded to, you're going to hear some pretty crazy things about him.
He's a man who went from helping put people behind bars to being placed in cuffs himself.
I apologize to the Milwaukee Police Department.
Former Milwaukee police officer Dominique Heaggan-Brown went to prison after pleading guilty to prostitution and false imprisonment charges. Now his time is up at Dodge Correctional Institution.
When we look at Dominique Heaggan, he was arrested earlier on for the shooting of Seville Smith.
New at noon, a former Milwaukee police officer is now charged with reckless homicide for the deadly shooting of a black man. The shooting led to 2 nights of rioting. Court records show the district attorney filed the charges against Dominique Heaggan-Brown. Hagen-Brown chased 23-year-old Seville Smith following a traffic stop back in August, and then he shot him.
When you look at the case of Hagen-Brown, we see something happen after that shooting. The biggest thing that happened was that he was arrested for sexually assaulting 3 men after he arrested them.
Former Milwaukee police officer Dominique Heaggan-Brown went to prison after pleading guilty to prostitution and false imprisonment charges. Dominique Heaggan-Brown is accused of sexually assaulting 2 men and soliciting sex from 2 others. He's the officer who shot and killed Seville Smith in August. Heaggan-Brown is accused of sexually assaulting an intoxicated man the day after he shot Seville Smith, according to the criminal complaint. Hagen-Brown bragged about being able to do what he wanted without repercussions.
Now, the problem here is that could this have been something that was known to the police department? Because if you look at the history of the police department, you will find that they did indeed have some more incidents that took place regarding this particular type of thing. There were 7 complaints made to the Milwaukee Police Department of sergeants and officers doing unauthorized rectal searches. Now, what happened was Flynn just took them off, did not do anything necessarily afterwards. They were just stripped of the police powers while the allegations were investigated. To this day, no updates have been done as to whether or not those people have been charged, rectified the situation with the people that they violated, or anything along those lines. So we'll leave that particular thing there just for your knowledge to know that even though there were some discrepancies found, nothing was done about it. Chalk that one up to the first line of problems we have in the department. The second thing that Ronnie spoke about was his affiliation with a man named Mike McGee.
I was campaigning with a former Alderman, Mike McGee, who was indicted for extortion, and I don't think he should have been indicted because all he was doing was going around telling Arabs, Indians, and Asians who own all the businesses in the black community that they should give back to the black community. And they felt like the black community, we shouldn't give back nothing. And they started reporting him. So the feds got involved and they charged him with extortion amongst a few other cases. You know, and once he got out of prison, you know, me and him had already had a bond. He was like my assistant teacher back in the day at this middle school called the Milwaukee Village. And when he was first running for alderman, he asked me to help him campaign and pass out brochures and to gather other students and other kids to help. You know what I mean? So we had that established back in, I believe that was back in 2002.
Now, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, courts proved everything out. We're not going to go into the case of Mike McGee. However, we're going to go into something that Ronnie spoke about. His affiliation with Mike McGee is probably what got him targeted in his estimation.
I believe that I was targeted because during the time I was campaigning with a former alderman, Mike McGee, who was indicted for extortion and
reason. In his words, Mike McGee was trying to help empower the black community in Milwaukee. In what way? By having the community that have either businesses or the people that are in the community that have businesses to try and give back to the community. His means by doing that, that's not for discussion right now. We're just talking about Mr. Bo's directional conversation about this. In his words, he may have been the reason why these particular people were coming after him, because they did not want to see the black community that were in Milwaukee get to the point where they had power.
I brought it to his attention that, you know, I'm campaigning. This is what I'm trying to do for the black community. I admire and honor what you tried to do for the black community. If you know, willing, you know, to support me, you know, it'd be an honor. So me and him did a documentary together where he told his story about the incidents that I just mentioned. And, you know, ironically, during this time while we was campaigning, that's when the Dominique Heaggan-Brown, to be exact, the black officer, he approached me and violated me, basically.
This is body cam video of an incident in which that same officer acquitted in the Seville Smith shooting, Dominique Heaggan-Brown, tased and arrested Martin. It happened in April 2015 at a gas station near Capitol and Sherman. Martin was a passenger in a car that was illegally parked. Martin says he jumped in the driver's seat to move it. Police reported they believed he was going to drive away. And Hagen-Brown reported seeing a plastic bag in Martin's hand, believed to be drugs. Martin was taken from the vehicle, forced to the pavement, and tased. No drugs were found.
I shouldn't have been tased. I shouldn't have been slammed. I shouldn't have been snatched out of the vehicle because I wasn't in the wrong. I was not in violation of the law in any way.
Now, what we're going to mention next is the possibility of why. Again, this is for you to decide, not for us. We're not saying either way, but we're going to bring something to the table for you to think about. I think it's a couple of weeks ago now, maybe a month now, we've done a video on the Black Boule. The Black Boule is a very interesting group because they've been around for a very long time and they've had their hands in all kinds of places. The belief is, possibly, maybe not, that they may have had a hand in this as well. While there are no direct ties to them, here are some things that we think may or may not link the Boule to the situation. 1. When you have Black people that are trying to gain a proper footing within their community, there are certain people that don't like that. One particular group that hates that is indeed the Black Boule. Now, whether or not they did anything to stop this movement, that's the one that's in question. However, the things that have taken place seem to suggest that they have either had influence or a hand in it. Secondly, this idea of the strip searching and the cavity searching while doing the strip searching. That also links back to a nefarious motive that the Black Boule, along with slave masters, had as well. Anytime you did something wrong, what had to happen? Humiliation. They had to keep you in line.
I later found out that this police officer was like a very notorious type of dude. You know, he later got charged with the murder of Seville Smith, and he later got charged with raping 3 different men. You know what I mean? So when I found out about that, it was like I kind of felt not just insulted, but assaulted. You know what I mean? Because it's like, did he do all this just so he can strip search me to see me naked because he gay? You know what I mean?
Make you do the thing that you are not wanting to do, that would make you feel the most vulnerable at the least expected time. 3, targeting. You're getting in our way. We're going to find a way to erase you. Now, that did work with Mr. McGee because he is no longer speaking out as loud as he used to. However, Ronnie is still. Even after, like he said, they brought Fed cases against him.
And I was framed again by the DEA. So I felt like they decided, well, Milwaukee police need to fall back, but now we need to put the feds on them. And I don't want to sound like I'm playing victim, so I want to state the facts. And the facts is that the officer, Tim Gray, to be specific, who framed me in the Fed case after Dominique Heaggan-Brown tried to frame me, I sued him. And records later came out that he indeed framed me in the case. I didn't win a lawsuit in court, but they settled. So that's just like a win.
Yeah, that's just like a win, yeah. Now, why did they fall through? Did they fall through because they didn't have anything to really set it on? Or did they realize it can't work twice? And why is he still walking around? Maybe because they know that if they did something, it would be too obvious. Now, again, this is for you guys to decide. This is not for us to tell you that definitely the Black Boule is behind this. But you know how we say here, when there are certain things that lead you a certain direction, you have to at least pursue it to see if it takes you down that road fully. While it hasn't taken us down that road fully, we cannot unequivocally say that they are not a part of this. You can look at the case of Mike McGee and say to yourself, well, he's been guilty of all this, and you can indeed do that. But does that negate any influence of people who are against what his actual motives were? Could it be that he was actually trying to do something good, and in the midst of it got caught up in something in his methods, and they saw that as an opportunity and seized it? Same thing they did with Ronnie Bo. I don't know for sure, but his story is one that is leaving a lot more questions on the table than answers. One, because you never know why they approached the car to begin with. There has never been any real answer other than what the policeman said, oh, drugs in a bag. And how would you have seen that through a window from a distance to approach the car? If it wasn't targeting, it had to be some really deep, superficial, kind of crazy, superhuman kind of police work to get to that point. But is that what happened? We don't know. But just like with most cases, a lot of this has to be left up to public opinion because it's not an actual court case right now. Remember, he did say he brought lawsuits, and after lawsuits happened, things took place. Usually what happens to people when they're afraid, they panic, they react, sometimes overreact. That could have been now. That could have been the situation. Again, we don't know. But what we do see are signs that there is something bigger going on than what is being said. You don't just enact an event like this without having a motive, at least the way we see it. What the motive is, who's behind it, all of those are still in a shaded area. However, you cannot negate the possibility. The reason Ronnie came forward with his story is in hopes that people will avoid this kind of situation and still be able to speak about what you know is going on around you, within your confines of your home, the confines of your community, and not let fear take over. It's really a story about resilience, but at the same time, it's a story of caution. Because at any moment and any time, if you go against a system that might be against you, you might find yourself fighting an uphill battle. What you may not know is the reasons behind it or the people that are the key elements behind your persecution. And since you don't know that, you have to function a little bit differently. One of those things that you can function with is a sense of, one, you have to be aware of your surroundings, and two, you have to be aware of the people that you put yourself around. Because if you're not aware of those two things, you can leave yourself open to some very, very crazy situations. Ronnie is now in a position where he has to either decide to keep fighting or quit. And he's decided to keep fighting.
I really have a passion for doing this. And if I die for doing it, I'll just die. But I'm never going to stop. They going to have to lock me up, kill me, or whatever they going to have to do. But I'm never going to stop.
Maybe we should all take a page from his book and realize that intimidation on any level will never work. However, retaliation on a violent level will always land you in hot water. Choose your battles wisely. And as for us, we'll wait to see what the end result of this case is, because I do believe it is far from over.